Well, Exiles, today I'm going to give you basically a guide on how to use fossils to specifically target mods when crafting cluster jewels. To begin with, fossils have basically unique properties that either say A, hey, this mod can't roll now, or B, we're highly increasing the odds this thing rolls. You'll notice here in PODB, this is basically a site I'm going to be showing to basically show you numbers and odds of getting stuff, but it basically says, hey, basically what these do, Scorch Fossil makes it so cold modifiers, now they can't roll, whereas fire modifiers, they basically get their odds multiplied by 10. Normally in a lot of items when you're rolling with fossils, this is like, it makes fire things roll a lot more often, but when you go and move on to cluster jewels, since the mod pool is so much smaller, it feels a whole lot more deterministic in terms of if you can specifically target a mod with the fossils. I'll explain why by going over to the fossils page. Now I'm going to use the large lightning jewel as an example. This is basically because I made a build guide on Immortal Man. I specifically use these jewels a lot. I'm more familiar with it. This is not the only case in which you can use these. There's other jewels, other scenarios in which you can do these things I'm talking about, and I just want you guys to take the information I'm giving you here and use it in your specific case based on what kind of jewels you're trying to craft. But I'm going to use this as the example. So the example basically goes with these large cluster jewels. An important mod combination for my build would have been Vengeful Commander and Snowstorm, or previously it was Vengeful Commander and Scintillating Idea. So anyways, if I was going to target trying to get Vengeful Commander and Snowstorm, just chaos spamming, it takes a lot of chaos to just randomly get lucky and hit both of these mods together with 2 jewel sockets. With fossils, we can kind of deterministically force these things to occur at a much higher rate together. The reason for this is you'll notice the mod pool weighting is basically all these numbers added up here, which is roughly about 10 to 11,000, plus the mod pool from these jewels, which is roughly each one of these mods basically has a total of 275 weighting. I would actually suggest getting a jewel below the level of 84, so that way you don't have all the extra fat from these mods here so they don't roll, because more or less you don't really want them. I mean, when you're trying to craft large jewels, all you really care about is getting the notables. The small passives are actually dead weight, so the less chance you have to roll them, the better. So definitely get a jewel between item level 75 and 83. 84 is when you add on extra fat to your mods. So basically how it works is, I did some numbers here on this, and more or less the suffix pool, this is for just the small added passive things, this is for large jewels, but it's either 2200 to 3000, and the prefix pool is 1400 and 1925. That's all these things added up. That's their odds of occurring, more or less, their weighting. Whereas you go on to the jewel socket portion of it, that's this thing right here, you basically have a 5,000 weighting for the 1 socket node and a 2.5 thousand weighting for the 2 socket node to occur. And then you have the notable pool up here, which is split into prefixes and suffixes. Total, it's about 10 to 11,000, with the suffix pool being somewhere in between 4 to 6,000, and the prefix pool being generally around 5 to 7,000. I got these numbers based on just adding some things up real quickly, checked it on a couple different jewels, and it was roughly around this range for most of the jewels I checked. This leads us to seeing large jewel suffix pool having a total weighting of 13.7 to 15.7, okay? Which basically means when we're rolling a jewel, we have like a 1 in 7 chance out of this weighting here to get a 2 jewel sockets notable. Or affix. More or less, if we don't get 2 jewel sockets, the jewel's kind of dead. So it's basically, to begin with, you have kind of a 1 in 7 of hitting 2 jewel sockets. And then you go over to your prefix pool, and you have it's a little bit smaller pool. It's actually 1400 plus 5 to 7k, which ends up being 6400 to 8400. The important thing about this is we have such a small prefix pool here. You'll see it's 6400 to 8400, that when we add fossils into this, we have a huge chance of hitting mods we want. So you'll see this here. Basically, if we're going for Vengeful Commander and Snowstorm, these are both prefixes, right? They exist in the prefix pool. If we add in a bound fossil, it's going to multiply this odds by 10. So instead of having a 1,000 weighting, it's going to have a 12,000 weighting. So it's pretty much whenever we add a bound fossil into our crafting, this thing Now the mod pool's not 6,400 to 8,400. It's like 18,000 to 20,000, and 12,000 of that is Vengeful Commander. You'll have like half the time you're going to hit Vengeful Commander with a Bound Fossil. So if you're trying to hit this mod, you now have a very like somewhat deterministic weighting of how you can somewhat guarantee this is going to occur the majority of the time. Then we add in the fact we're trying to hit Snowstorm as well. There is a fossil called the Frigid Fossil. So the key thing about these mods is when you're looking for scenarios where you can really take advantage of fossils, you either A, need to be able to write off mods you don't want, or B, select mods that you can multiply without multiplying other things. So for example, in this pool, I'm specifically choosing mods that have a category, like this one has the aura aura affix to it because it's all about auras, whereas none of these other things have the aura affix. So I can use Bound Fossil without increasing any of these odds while magnifying these odds. Same with Snowstorm. I can take a Frigid Fossil, I can add that into the mix, and I increase the odds of Snowstorm a ton without increasing any of the odds of any of the other mods I don't want. So we take in a Frigid and a Bound Fossil, and instead of having basically a 1200 and a 600 weighting out of 8400 or whatever, having pretty small odds to hit it, now our Snowstorm is a 6,000 pool, our Vengeful Commander is a 12,000 pool, and I have a much higher chance of hitting those specific mods. So I'm basically going to go in game to kind of show you this in work. For start off with, I'm just going to use a Frigid Fossil just to show you, hey, when I use a Frigid Fossil, I hit Snowstorm a lot of the time. You'll see, okay, I didn't hit it that time. I hit it that time. Okay, so 1 out of 2 so far, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, and I hit it again. You saw I hit it 4 out of 5 times using Frigid Fossils. You can see it's a much higher likelihood you hit Snowstorm when you're just using Frigid Fossils on a Lightning Jewel, for example. And it could go the same way if you have a Cold Jewel and you're trying to hit Snowstorm. You could use a Metallic Fossils because Snowstorm is both a Lightning and a Cold notable. So it basically gets affected by both Frigid and Metallic Fossils and how it gets multiplied. So now let's go to the scenario where we're trying to hit both Snowstorm and Vengeful Commander. You'll see we actually hit it here and we got Disoriented Display. That would have been a perfect jewel if we had also hit 2 jewel sockets. Fortunately we didn't, but now we're just trying to go for both Snowstorm and Vengeful Commander. So we're using a fossil with both Bound and Frigid inside it. We slam it on here. You'll notice we got both Vengeful Commander and Snowstorm. If we hit 2 jewel sockets, this would have been a perfect large jewel for our the Immortal Man build. So we hit it 1 out of 1 time so far. We hit it 2 out of 2 times. So right here is actually a scenario where, frankly, I should stop and be happy with this, or I could slam an Exalt on it and take the chance to hit another notable. But since I'm just doing this for showing you guys how much it determines and how much it affects the mod outcome, I'm going to scour it and keep going. You'll see I didn't hit it that time. So I've hit it 2 out of 3 times. Didn't hit it again. And didn't hit it again. But basically what you're seeing there is it has a pretty big weighting. You'll notice on the ones where I didn't hit it, I at least hit one of the notables of the 2 Snowstorm and Vengeful Commander. Basically the example I'm trying to show here is that you can greatly affect how likely it is to get a mod combination you want if you can specifically target it based on the mod pool you have. Another example I was mentioning earlier is, say for example I was going for Scintillating Idea in Vengeful Commander. This previously was the mod combination I wanted in Immortal Man. What I would have do to hit that is I would use Lucent Fossils to increase mana mods to pop up, which would increase the likelihood Scintillating Idea occurs. And then I would also use Bound Fossils again to go for that mana, or that Scintillating Idea plus Vengeful Commander. So that's kind of the idea behind how you can kind of target mods with fossils. They have such a huge effect based on such a small weighting pool that you somewhat deterministically can choose specific mods you want to occur. This only really works in the scenarios where you have mods that do not share other categories of distinction like type. So this one is an aura mod. There's no other aura mods here, so I can specifically target it with the Bound Fossil. This one has a cold mod. This is a cold mod, while these all are other lightning or other mods, so I can target it. This one has a mana. This is a mana mod, so I can target it with Lucent Fossils. Basically what you gotta look for is figure out, A, are there mods on specific jewels I can target, And if you can, figure out what those fossils are, and if the fossil cost isn't too much, it might be a good way for you to target craft specific types of jewels you want. Another good example is going over to like medium cluster jewels. Everybody's crafting the Herald jewels, right? For example, if you go over to, let's see, where are the Herald jewels? Make sure I'm not blind. If you go over to these Herald jewels here, for example, everybody cares about Purposeful Harbinger, right? It's one of the most broken notables by far and away. If you wanted to deterministically kind of make this one occur a lot more often, this is a aura modifier, right? None of these other ones are aura modifiers. So if you use a bound fossil on one of these medium jewels, you're going to greatly increase the chance you hit Purposeful Harbinger, which will increase the chance basically you hit Purposeful Harbinger with something else you want. More or less, that's kind of the idea behind targeting specific mods you want on fossils. Again, I'll show kind of like the math behind. I ran a few numbers for small prefix, for small jewels, for medium jewels, for large jewels. You can kind of look over this to kind of see what the general weighting of things is. Basically, the way you got to think of it is these are the general odds, and then based on what fossils I use, I take, say, for example, if it was Purposeful Harbinger, the weighting's 350, that would get multiplied by 10. So instead of 350, it's 3,500. So a medium jewel would actually have, the prefix pool would go from being a 1,100 to 1,200 pool to being a 1,400 to 15,000 pool with the addition of my Purposeful Harbinger getting multiplied by 10. So in that case, it'd be 3,500 out of 15. So it'd be like a 1 in 5 you now hit Purposeful Harbingers if you're crafting with bound fossils. So that's the basic math behind it, guys. I hope this is helpful for you to be able to craft, I guess, jewels you want based on specific cluster notables you're working with and cluster jewels you're working with. And you guys have a good one. Hope you enjoyed the information.